Hello, this is Cho of the Shiny Colors Discord, and welcome to another episode of the Shiny Review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the new banner and the new event card, which is a new P-SR Sakuya, as well as a new support, SR Foucault. First off, Sakuya. It's been a long time since we've had a banner that only features a PSR, so in a way it's nice to see a return of this format. I mean, usually it's just, let's just push out more and more PSSRs, let's have more limited banners. So having a sort of cooldown banner with just a PSR is nice, and I hope we see more of them in the future. New Sakuya is a bit of a weird card in the fact that she feels old. She's built very similarly to the initial SR Sakuya, or Kabedon Sakuya, with a mix of buffs and nerfs by comparison. She's not a bad card, but it makes me wonder if they're not certain on a path for future Antika SRs. I think the biggest hurdle this card has to work with is the fact that many players will have Kabedon Sakuya maxed out, meaning you'll feel less incentivized to work this character up to max. I believe this Sakuya card is still fine for general play, but almost certainly not a big contender in terms of powerful SR units. Should you pull for this card? You'll get her eventually, she is permanent after all. Her roles are center, maybe, and a buffer. Sakuya's initial skill is a Vocal 2.5, that links into a Vocal 3.0. Simple, I know. And her max skill is a Dance 3.5 that links into a Dance 3.0. Her 1-star passive is a visual 15% up that requires your mental to be 74% or lower, 40% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a vocal 30% up that requires the turn count to be 6 or later, 40% chance to activate once. Her 3-star uncap is a plus 100 to dance, and her memory appeal when maxed is a dance 50% up for 4 turns that links into a dance 3.0. To do a little bit of comparison, we're going to bring up Kabedon Sakuya on the right, who is a dance visual unit compared to this vocal dance. She does have access to a dance 2.5 that links into a 3.0 at 0 stars, and does have a dance passive of 30% after turn 6, at 2 star. Her uncap is worse, her 1-star passive is still just as irrelevant as ever, and her 4-star appeal doesn't exactly help her case much either. The memory appeal is of course a big contention point, as the old Sakuya has a dance 70% up for 3 turns that links into a 3.0 as opposed to the 50% for 4 turns. If you want a stronger base appeal but weaker memory appeal, then the new Sakuya works out. However, you also lose out on a dance 30% passive and will also need to pull extra copies to get the new Sakuya to 4-star, compared to only needing the old Sakuya to be at 0 star, preferably 2 stars. I think realistically the new Sakuya is a better dance unit than the old one. I'm just not really sure why they decided to nerf the memory appeal, more or less. If these two SRs hit the key point of this particular style of Antika where they can memory appeal every turn, the original SR Sakuya will be doing more damage as the ramp up is much faster, in comparison to the new Sakuya. So for some people that may be a bit of a detriment, so use your best judgment. For support recommendations, our high recommendations consider a full dance build in this case. Naturally, splash in your dance SRs as you see fit, but many of the cards here play into Sakuya's strengths. Halloween Yuika and Wanderlust Mamimi assist the most heavily, as it allows you to reduce your mental and take more damage so that you can reach the ideal thresholds in memory appeal consistently. And Kiriko helps out as well by just having generally good passives for dance, especially for Antika. For the alternatives, we'll feature other dance units, but also vocal if you choose to branch in this direction. Most Kogane cards will assist in this venture, but you might not find it as powerful as a dance variant. As for the team recommendation, a variation of one of the original powerhouse teams is who we've got today. This team focuses on reducing mental as quick as possible while stalling turns out, setting up for their 150% dance link appeals. Ideally, you reach a scenario where you're at over 450% dance buff, while at incredibly low HP to allow yourself to memory appeal constantly. Since most of your pieces are SRs, with only one SSR potentially necessary, putting this team together is a lot easier than most of the other teams we've ever reviewed on the channel. So this includes the second SR for Kogane, an event SR for Yuika, the new Sakuya of course, one of the more recent SR Mamimi, and the initial SSR for Kiriko. As for some alternatives, if you want to use the Gacha SR Yuika, it is possible, though it is a little bit harder to use because the link appeals don't quite match up. She will be playing off stat, so you have to compensate for that somehow. There's also the event Kiriko if you are around for that card, which is also an option. And other alternatives could be the SSR2 Yuika, or SSR2 Kiriko. The Yuika is a bit more consistent overall in damage, and the Kiriko is a little less aggressive as it plays on a more defensive style compared to the more aggro play of the initial SSR or V-Riko. Overall, Sakuya as a center is somewhere between a C+ and a B+. She's certainly a bit more of a niche center and certainly budget when compared to some of the biggest teams in the game, but the Sakuya serves as a good footnote for what a solid memory appeal for a SR unit should look like. Being able to potentially ramp up over several turns in the right circumstances lends itself to great damage, but can lack consistency. If you're willing to throw in some elbow grease but are strapped for units, this Sakuya is a great fit for you. As a unit, however, she's about a C-. Aside from having a 3.5 appeal that can technically be a 6.5, this Sakuya really doesn't bring anything to the table for pretty much any team other than this one. It's why I labeled her as mostly looking old in the beginning, as most of the initial SRs were very functionally dysfunctional. They can certainly exist as a unit, but they don't really provide a whole lot to anything other than themselves. They're all over the place, and this Sakuya is no exception. You'll most likely end up splashing at least one support appeal into her set, maybe even two if you care little about her appeals. Her vocal presence is mostly neglected for dance, and at dance, she's okay. Next we have Foucault. It only took 1 P-SSR, 2 P-SR, and 3 S-SSR before Foucault got her first S-SR. As she is, this Foucault is okay. Things to consider with this Foucault are that she has no scaling appeal, a semi-low mastery strength, an interesting 4-star appeal, and a simple and easy to use 2-star passive. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Promise Recovery, and Rest Boost, and her unique skill is Visual Mastery Visual, which reaches +5 at level 65. Her TFD idea is Visual, and her Insight token for Grad is Vocal. Foucault's initial passive is a visual 12% up that requires you to be in the visual position, so remember this only applies to Fess, not during any produce runs. This has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a visual 20% up, as long as you have an active visual buff on you. This has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 3-star uncap is a +50 to visual, and her 4-star appeal is a visual 2.0 that applies a visual 5% buff to all players for 5 turns. Her event passive is a visual 8% up that requires Foucault on your team and has a 30% chance to activate twice. Foucault gets a C. This card is mostly okay, but not particularly strong. Her visual mastery is not all that attractive due to its low value, and her passives are mostly outshone by other visual supports of this variety, including the support SSR Foucault you might have already found. This Foucault is a bit of a weak filler unit, but filler nonetheless. Might see this card played in Collabofest due to buffing all players by 5%, maybe to correspond with cards like Natsuha or Mei or Jury that buff all stats, but I don't think 5% is going to be that impactful to a lot of players, and so I won't really expect this card to see a whole lot of play. Should you farm for this card? You might as well. Fill out the collection. Otherwise, I wouldn't really be using this card to build too often, unless you are really strapped for units. And that's going to do it for the video today. Thank you as always for watching. We'll be back again to talk about whatever banner comes next. Of course, we've also got the grad video in the works right now, so hopefully we'll get that up in the next week or so. We'll probably push back whatever next shiny review will happen so that we can get the grad video going, as I know there's been a lot of requests for that. Just wanted to make sure that all the details we needed were available before we put the video into production. Otherwise, thanks again for watching. My name's Cho. Have a wonderful rest of your day.